The screams of his aunts and uncles echoed through the sunlit parlor as Braden watched his relatives tear through his grandmother's belongings like vultures. But when his uncle slammed the suitcase into his chest with sneer, Braden had no idea this forgotten relic held a plane ticket that would shatter his world and rebuild it anew. He stood there, the worn leather pressing cold against his ribs, while the afternoon light poured through the lace curtains, turning every greedy gesture into sharp relief. Why did it always come to this? He wondered, the same question that had haunted him since he was 16 and first realized the way his heart beat for boys instead of girls. His family had never said it outright, but the distance had grown like a living thing, the way they avoided his eyes at holidays, the careful way they never asked about his life beyond the safe scripted answers. Now, with Grandma Evelyn gone, the last buffer between him and their judgment had vanished, and the room felt smaller than ever. Inside his head, the thoughts crashed one after another, a relentless tide. They see me as the problem, the one who broke the perfect picture. Dad still can't look at me without that flicker of disappointment. Mom changes the subject every time my name comes up in conversation with her friends. And the cousins, they laugh too loud when I walk in, as if my presence is a joke they tolerate for her sake. Grandma was different. She never flinched. She would pull me aside on those quiet afternoons in the garden, her hand warm on my arm, and say things like, "The heart knows its own truth, Braden. Don't let anyone steal it from you." He had never told her explicitly, but somehow she knew. The way she smiled when he mentioned Adrian that one summer, the subtle nods when he dodged questions about girlfriends. She knew, and she loved him anyway. The lawyer cleared his throat, pulling everyone to the dining table. Braden moved closer, feeling the familiar knot in his stomach tighten. The reading dragged on silverware to Aunt Linda, the house to be sold with proceeds split evenly. Then the line that stopped his breath. "To my grandson Braden, I leave the old brown leather suitcase from the attic and everything inside it. May it carry you where your spirit needs to go." Silence hit the room like a slap. Then the explosion. That old junk Uncle Marcus barked, his face twisting in disbelief. Why him of all people? The queer one gets the special treatment while we split the real value. Braden's cheeks burned hot, but beneath the shame something else stirred, a fragile spark of curiosity laced with terror. Why me? Why now? He felt their eyes on him, heavy with resentment, and the old familiar weight of not belonging pressed down harder. In his mind, the monologue screamed louder. They think I'm not worthy of anything good. That my love makes me less deserving. But Grandma chose me. She chose the one they all pity or ignore. What does that mean for the life I've been surviving in this town, the dead-end job, the secret nights wondering if Adrian still thinks of me the way I think of him every single day? He climbed the attic stairs later, when the others had stormed out with their claimed treasures, the wood groaning under his weight like an old friend sighing. The suitcase sat in the corner, dusty but solid, smelling faintly of lavender and thyme. His hands shook as he opened it. Folded clothes from another era, a stack of letters tied with faded ribbon, and at the bottom a one-way plane ticket to San Francisco dated for next week. Attached was a letter in Grandma's elegant hand. "My brave boy, by the time you read this I will have crossed to the other side. I have watched you carry your truth like a secret burden. I knew about the boy Adrian and the light in your eyes when you spoke of him. Do not stay where they will dim that light. Take this ticket. Love. Be free. You have my blessing always." Tears came hot and fast, blurring the words. She knew. All those years she had carried his secret without a word of judgment, while the rest of the family built walls around him. The guilt crashed in immediately. Leaving now after everything she did for me. Dad will call me ungrateful. Mom will cry and say I am abandoning them in their grief. The town will whisper even louder about the gay grandson who ran away. Yet beneath the guilt, a deeper ache rose, the longing to breathe without hiding, to hold someone's hand in daylight without fear. Adrian's face flashed in his memory, that last night in college, the kiss that tasted like possibility and goodbye, because Adrian had said, "I need to chase my art in the city, and you need to figure out who you are here." Braden had let him go, too scared to follow, too scared to admit he wanted the same freedom. He sat on the attic floor, the suitcase open like a portal, reading each letter slowly, each one peeling back another layer of his shame. Grandma had written them over years, never sending them, but saving them for this moment. In one, she described her own hidden love for a woman during her youth, the sacrifices she made for family expectations, the regret that followed. It mirrored his life so closely, it hurt physically. Why did I wait so long to even admit it to myself? Why do I still feel like I owe them my silence when they have given me nothing but conditional scraps of love? The conflict tore him in half, one side screaming to stay, to keep the peace, to be the good son, even if it meant dying inside a little more each day. The other side whispered with Grandma's voice, "Go. You deserve the sun on your face," without apology. By nightfall, the house was quiet, the family gone with their loot and their resentment. Braden packed his few things into the suitcase, his movements mechanical, while his mind raced. The ticket felt like fire in his pocket. He texted Adrian on impulse: "I'm coming to San Francisco. Grandma left me something. A chance, maybe." The reply came quick: "Are you sure? I've missed you." But the doubt flooded back immediately. What if he has moved on? What if I arrive and realize I'm still the same scared man who let him walk away? What if this is just another way to run from the truth that I may never be enough for anyone, including myself? He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the internal storm raging harder than ever. Tomorrow, he would leave this town, this life, this version of himself. The family feud had taken everything material, but Grandma had given him the one thing they could never touch: the fragile hope that he might finally learn to love the man he was meant to be. Yet as sleep finally claimed him, the last thought echoed like a warning. You are choosing yourself, Braden. Is that bravery or the ultimate betrayal? The plane lifted off the runway, and Braden pressed his forehead to the cool window, watching the familiar fields of Ohio shrink into nothing. How many times had he dreamed of this escape, only to pull back at the last moment out of guilt or fear? Now here he was, suitcase stowed above him, Grandma's letters tucked against his heart, and the weight of her words pressing down with new intensity. She had believed in him enough to send him away. Why couldn't he believe in himself the same way? The hours in the air became a prison of memory and doubt. He replayed every family dinner where his father had changed the subject when talk turned to relationships. The way his mother would smile too brightly and say, "You'll find the right girl someday, honey," as if his truth was a phase that would pass with enough prayer. The cousins who joked about him behind his back, never inviting him to their weddings or baby showers. All of it built a cage he had learned to live inside. Adrian had been the first crack in those bars that summer they met at the community college, the way his laugh made the world feel bigger, the way his touch said, "I see you, and I like what I see." But Braden had pushed him away, saying, "I can't leave my family, they need me." The lie still tasted bitter. The truth was he had been terrified of what loving Adrian openly would cost him. Landing in San Francisco, the city sprawled beneath him in bright sunlight, the bay glittering like a promise. He stepped off the plane, heart hammering. Grandma's ticket had included an address, a small gallery in the Mission District with a note: "Meet my old friend there. She will help you start." But first he called Adrian, the phone trembling in his hand. The voice on the other end was the same warm baritone that had haunted his dreams. "Braden, you really came. Where are you? They'll meet you." They agreed on a cafe near the gallery, and Braden walked the streets feeling exposed and alive at once. The internal voice was louder now. "Look at these people holding hands without fear. Could that ever be me? Or will I always carry this shame like a second skin?" Adrian was waiting at a corner table, sunlight catching the silver in his dark hair. He stood and pulled Braden into a hug that felt like coming home and falling apart all at once. "You look the same but different," he said, eyes searching. "Tell me everything." Over coffee, Braden poured out the funeral, the fight, the suitcase, the letters. Adrian's hand found his under the table, a quiet anchor. "I never stopped thinking about you, Braden. But you always pulled away. What changed?" The question hung heavy. Braden stared at their joined hands, the simple touch sending waves of longing and terror through him. "Grandma changed it. She saw me when no one else did. But now I'm here, and I don't know if I can be the man you deserve without all that baggage dragging me down." The doubt clawed deeper. What if this city swallows me? What if I disappoint you again and have to crawl back home more broken than before? They walked the streets after that, Adrian showing him the murals, the hills, the ocean air that tasted of salt and possibility. Every step brought new memories, the way Adrian had once said, "I want a life where we don't have to hide." Braden had wanted that too, but fear had won. Now the family texts started coming. Mom saying, "Your father is devastated you left so soon." Uncle Marcus writing, "You always were selfish." Each message twisted the knife of guilt tighter. He wanted to reply with the truth, but the words stuck. In his mind, the monologue raged. They never fought for me when I needed them. Why should I fight to stay in their world? Yet the love was still there, tangled with pain, the kind that doesn't let go easily. That night in a small hotel room, Adrian stayed late, their conversation turning deeper. I came out fully here, Braden said softly. My job at the gallery is open. No hiding. The words felt like a lifeline, but also a test. Braden lay awake after Adrian left, the city lights flickering through the blinds. Grandma's voice echoed in his head. Live boldly. But what if boldly means losing the only family I have left? What if Adrian sees the cracks and walks away again? The emotion built heavier than in the days before, the isolation, the hope, the terror of becoming someone new. Tomorrow, he would visit the gallery. Tomorrow, the real journey would begin. But for now, he clutched the suitcase closer, feeling Grandma's presence like a gentle push forward into the unknown. The gallery door chimed as Braden stepped inside, the sunlight from the street flooding the white walls with warmth. Grandma's friend, an older woman named Rosa, greeted him with a hug that smelled of paint and kindness. She knew Evelyn, well, she said, her eyes kind. She told me about you. About the courage it takes to be who you are. The words landed soft, but they stirred the storm inside him again. Courage. He had never felt courageous, only scared and small. Rosa showed him around the space, paintings of lovers and open-field sculptures of intertwined figures. Each piece seemed to mock his hidden life. Adrian arrived later, his presence steadying yet electrifying. They talked for hours about art, about loss, about the families that shape us and the ones we choose. Braden shared more than he ever had, the nights he cried alone after coming out to his parents, the way his father had said, I don't understand, but I guess I have to live with it. The way that non-acceptance had carved a hole in him that nothing filled. Adrian's response was quiet but fierce. You don't owe them your silence anymore. You owe yourself the chance to be whole. The words sank deep, but the doubt followed right behind. Easy for you to say. You built a life here. What if I try and it all falls apart and I end up proving them right, that I was never strong enough? As the days unfolded, the city wrapped around him, bright and loud. He helped at the galleries, sorting pieces, meeting artists who lived openly. Every conversation chipped at his walls. Yet the family calls grew more insistent. His mother crying on the phone, your grandmother would be heartbroken to see you run away like this. The guilt was a living thing, twisting in his chest. He would hang up and stare at the bay from his temporary apartment, the water sparkling under endless sun. Inside, the monologue intensified. She knew me better than they ever did. She sent me here because she saw I was dying there. But why does choosing me feel like killing them? Adrian noticed the shadows in his eyes during their evening walks. Talk to me, he would say, pulling him close. Braden would try, but the words came out tangled with fear. I want this with you. The real version. But part of me is still waiting for them to approve. What if they never do? What if I spend my life looking over my shoulder? One afternoon, they sat on a bench overlooking the Golden Gate, the wind carrying laughter from tourists. Adrian turned to him, eyes serious. I was closeted for years, too. It ate me alive until I chose me. You can, too. The moment hung full of possibility. Braden leaned in, their foreheads touching, the simple contact sending sparks through him. For the first time, the hope felt stronger than the fear. Yet that night alone, the text from his sister arrived. Dad had a bad day at the doctor. He asked about you. The manipulation was clear, but it hit hard. He curled into himself, the suitcase open on the floor, Grandma's letters scattered like accusations. Am I abandoning them or finally saving myself? The emotion swelled heavier, the love for Adrian mixing with the ache for the family that never fully loved him back. San Francisco was teaching him to breathe, but the past refused to let go quietly. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of gallery work and stolen time with Adrian. They cooked dinners in Adrian's small apartment, the city lights twinkling outside like stars brought down to earth. Braden felt himself opening piece by piece, the way Adrian listened without judgment, the way he kissed him like he was something precious. Yet the internal cracks widened with every new closeness. One night after they had shared stories until dawn, Braden lay awake watching Adrian's sleeping face. He deserves someone whole, not this mess of guilt and what ifs. What if my family is right and I am too broken for real love? The misunderstanding came sudden and sharp. Adrian suggested they attend a gallery opening together as a couple. Braden froze, the old panic rising. What if someone from home sees photos? What if it gets back and they disown me completely? He pulled away, saying, "I'm not ready." The hurt in Adrian's eyes was immediate. "I thought we were past hiding." The argument was quiet, but raw, their voices low in the sunlit kitchen. Braden felt the words spill out. "You don't understand what it's like to have them look at you like you're a disappointment every single day." Adrian countered softly, "But you can't keep letting them define you." The silence after was heavy with unsaid fears. That evening, Braden walked the streets alone, the bright sun doing nothing to warm the chill inside. The monologue was a roar now. "I am pushing him away again because I'm terrified of losing the last illusion of family. Grandma wanted me to live boldly, but boldly means risking everything." A stranger on the street smiled at him, two men holding hands nearby, and the contrast hit like a wave. "They do it so easily. Why can't I?" He returned to Adrian later, the apology heavy on his tongue. "I am trying, but the fear is loud." Adrian pulled him close, the embrace full of understanding, yet edged with frustration. "We can face it together. But you have to want it." The moment deepened their bond, but the doubt lingered heavier than before, the emotion layering like sediment in his soul. Family interference arrived via a surprise call from his uncle. "We heard you're living with some guy out there. Your mother is sick with worry. Come home and fix this." The words landed like blows. Braden hung up, shaking, the guilt now mixed with anger. "They never worried when I was miserable at home. Only when I started to heal." That night with Adrian, the conversation turned deeper, the internal storm reaching new heights. "I love you, Adrian. But loving you means admitting I might never have their blessing. Can I live with that?" The question hung between them, the sunlight fading, but the emotion burning brighter than ever. The crisis hit on a bright Saturday when his sister showed up unannounced at the gallery. She had flown out on a whim, or so she claimed, her eyes full of judgment as she looked around the sun-filled space. "Mom sent me. You need to come home. Dad isn't doing well, and this phase of yours is tearing the family apart." Braden felt the ground shift beneath him. Face. The words still had power after all these years. Rosa gave them privacy, but the confrontation spilled into the street, the sunlight doing nothing to soften the blow. In his mind, the thoughts exploded. "She came all this way to drag me back. Not because they miss me, but because my happiness threatens their picture-perfect world." Adrian stood beside him, silent support, but Braden could feel the tension. Later alone, the breakdown came full force. He sat on the floor of his apartment, Grandma's suitcase, opened, the letters scattered. Why does their disapproval still cut so deep? Grandma told me to go. She knew this would happen. The tears came hot, the emotion heavier than any day since the funeral. Adrian found him there, pulling him up into an embrace that felt like the only solid thing left. "You don't have to choose between us and them, but you do have to choose yourself." The words soothed and stung at once. The days that followed were a blur of calls and accusations. His father, finally on the line, voice tight. "If you stay there, don't expect us at your wedding or anything." The rejection was final, yet Braden felt a strange release. In the gallery with Adrian, the sunlight streaming through the windows, he whispered, "I think I am ready to let them go." But the internal war raged on. Letting go means grieving the family I always wanted. Can I do that without losing pieces of myself? The emotion crested higher, the love for Adrian now intertwined to the pain of loss, making every moment feel raw and alive. Adrian faced his own storm at work, a client discovering their relationship and pulling funding with veiled comments about image. He came home tense, the usual calm cracked. "I can handle it, but it makes me wonder if I am asking too much of you too soon." Braden listened, the guilt shifting to sacrifice. "Maybe I should go back. Spare you this." The idea tore at him. The monologue was relentless. "I bring chaos everywhere. Grandma wanted freedom for me, but freedom for him means standing beside me through this mess." They argued in the kitchen, sunlight slanting across the table. "I won't let you run, Braden." "Not again." The words hung raw. Braden felt the depth of his love and fear collide. You deserve peace, not my baggage. Yet staying meant facing it all. That night the emotion peaked in quiet tears. I am terrified of being the reason your life gets harder. But leaving you would break me more than any family ever could. The bond strengthened in the vulnerability the internal conflict now shared, making it heavier and somehow lighter at once. The climax exploded during a video call with the whole family gathered at home. They had seen photos online. The accusations flew. You chose him over us. Braden stood tall, Adrian beside him in the sunlit apartment. I chose me. Grandma's gift was the courage to do that. The shouting turned to silence, then his mother's quiet sob. The call ended, but the emotion inside Braden surged like a tidal wave. Years of swallowed pain rose up. He broke down in Adrian's arms, the catharsis raw and complete. I am enough. I always was. The breakthrough felt like rebirth, the conflict finally turning toward resolution. Months later, Braden stood on the same pier where he and Adrian had first embraced, openly, the sunlight warm on their skin. The suitcase sat at home, now a reminder, not a burden. He had built a life here, gallery, work steady, love steady. The family still called, sometimes the conversations careful, but the bridge was there if they chose to cross it. Grandma's words lived in him now. Live boldly. He had. And in doing so, he had found the man he was always meant to be. True or false? Leaving a rejecting family is the only path to authentic happiness for someone who loves differently.